Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to welcome to the show a new friend, Gerson Garsed-Brand. Gerson, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
How was the pronunciation?
Yeah, it's good.
Very
Anything
good.
in between Gerson, G, Garrison is all good.
Whatever. We'll stick with Gerson for now. So,
okay.
Gerson, we were recently introduced from a sort of mutual connection, Pim, who is the CEO of the Silverstone Technology Cluster. And so he introduced us because you've recently joined the Silverstone Technology Cluster, or your business has, which is Sabe Technology. And so the purpose of today's podcast is really just to really wax lyrical and shout about you and talk about you. And let's talk about your background, your business, and why other sort of members of the STC, but also Silverstone Park and the wider community should be checking you guys out. So where should we start? I want to start with your background, if that's okay. So before we get into Sabe Technology, I just want to talk about you and sort of your career, because I've had a quick look at LinkedIn, as I do, and have a look at people's sort of career snapshot. And I can see you've got a very impressive career that spans not one, but two sort of roles within F1, from Caterham through to Renault. And also you're Brazilian, and so clearly you're a massive F1 nut, because who wouldn't be from Brazil? It's F1 or football or both. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, earliest memories of sort of motorsport and engineering, career and present day.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm Brazilian. So I was born in the early 80s, and I was, Brazil was going quite well in Formula One. So we had Emerson in the 70s, then Piquet in the 80s, and then Senna. So by the time I was 6, Senna won his first title. And my early memories was, I was already crazy about Formula One at that point. So, because of the time zone, I remember Senna winning the World Championship in Japan. It was a 1 a.m. race. And as a 6 years old, I remember watching with my dad already.
Nice.
I have my young children now, and I can imagine them staying awake at 1. So it's like, and then it was the whole Senna period was quite a strong thing for me, which then obviously ended in '94 quite badly. But I had a seed there. I always wanted. Very early on, I decided I want to work in motorsport. And then there was a bit of I was good at math, so one thing came another. I was at some point, like when I was 12, 13, I was clearly quite old to start as a driving career, and there was nothing. It didn't look like my family was going to go that way anyway. Yeah. So I said, well, it has to be engineering then, and I set my mind that I was going to do engineering and working in motorsport. So I kind of directed all my studies towards the direction, and studied mechanical engineering, and then during that period, aerodynamics became the key area for me. I was very, very interested. So I went on to do a PhD in aero, and and then at that point, back from in Brazil, you have obviously Formula One is around Europe and mostly England, and you have the language barrier, and you also have we are very far away. It's not something you can go for the weekend away. Like if you live in Germany, you take a flight and spend the weekend in England, and practice your English a little bit. So there were quite a few challenges there, and so I applied for jobs from the UK, from Brazil, and got quite a few no's. I kept some of the letters, and then in 2008, I decided to basically come on holidays to the UK and send messages to various companies, Formula One teams and non-Formula One teams, saying I will be there on holiday. I would love to go for an interview. And then that's how I got an interview in a company in London, so not related to Formula One. So it was a CFD company, and they offered me a job. So that was the way I managed to move to the UK.
Nice.
So then I worked for another 2 years as a consultant there, and I was very lucky. Then it was beginning of Caterham, which back then was still Lotus Racing, I think it was the initial name, and then they became Team Lotus and then Caterham. And as they started from scratch in Norfolk, they hired the company I was working on to send some consultants to help setting up the CFD methodology, and that's how I got my first experience in Formula One. So I went on to work for a year as a contractor, and then ended up staying there.
What was that like? So 6 years old, staying up till 1 o'clock, watching Senna win.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, you're now a young adult. You've come over to the UK for a holiday, winged an interview or two, got a job, CFD. A couple of years later, you're now working in F1. What was that like?
That was amazing. It was it's just it's really, it was the dream, my childhood dream happening. I couldn't. Everything was just amazing.
Yeah. What about Dad?
Obviously,
what about your father? Sorry, how did your father respond?
Yeah, they were all very proud, because I don't think many people believed I was going to make this way. So it's, they all thought I was a bit crazy, but there you go. So that was a good one, and then that's how I stayed. I think Formula One, and people who work in Formula One realize that it's quite tricky to get in because it's the expertise you need is very specific. But once you are in, you acquire some of that knowledge and that background, then it's a lot easier to stay. So I think the getting in is really the most difficult part. Then after that is a lot easier to move around.
And then Caterham, you then went to.
So then Caterham moved from Norfolk to Lichfield in Oxfordshire, and then I moved to Lotus in end of 2013. So to the Ayrton team, which then became Renault, which was quite interesting as well, because Lotus was in serious financial problems at that stage. So a lot of people were leaving. But then, so we had so that was end of 2013. So we had a couple of years which was really tricky in terms of not knowing how long we were going to stick to the job there. And then funny enough, my wife got pregnant, and then our first child was born on the 3rd of December 2015. And I remember being in the maternity ward and reading the news popped on my phone that Renault had acquired Lotus, and it was the thing, wow, I have a child and actually I'm keeping the job. So
wow,
that was an interesting moment. And then after that, it's been brilliant with Renault.
And then in recent times, you then set your own business up. So talk to us about Sabe Technologies.
Yeah, so just finishing the Formula One thing. At Renault, I moved sideways quite a lot. I've done various from CFD to wind tunnel testing to them, and finally doing aerodynamic performance, dealing with the race cars, with the aerodynamic track side team, which was an amazing job. So doing a lot of correlation work, understanding why certain parts work in the tunnel, don't work on the track, or work in CFD, why we have differences, doing all sorts of tests to understand why, building instrumentation and so on. But then it got to a point where, the workload it was a brilliant time, but by then I had 2 children at home, a young family, and I was seeing them early in the morning, say a breakfast, and then really having a fight to get back at home in time for bath time. And I said, well, I just don't want that. I want to be around my family more often. And so I decided to quit Formula One and start my own business. So
good for you.
I am now.
I love that story. So what was that like, opening a business?
Well, it was it was nice. So so Sabe Technologies is a consultancy and technology company, fluid dynamics. So I'm being very careful here to say not just CFD, because we do a lot more. Everything related to fluid dynamics, CFD is a big part of it. I started the business was interesting, as most startups will tell you. I think all sorts of finding out, discovering all the challenges with from accountancy to sales to all the tax rules and all that kind of stuff. Cash flow eventually being a bit tricky. I was doing quite well. So I started in July 2019. I was doing ahead of building quite a lot of momentum over the first 6 months. And in January, February this year, I was quite happy considering hiring and growing the business, and then COVID hit, which was not ideal in many ways, but here I am surviving still, so it's okay.
What do you guys do? So let's talk about specialisms. So where do you add value?
Yeah, so think about, I'm trying to spread in many different areas, fields of engineering, not just, so my background is clearly motorsport and automotive, and within that we do aerodynamics, air acoustics, brake engine, battery cooling, subsystems, so like headlamp defogging, windscreen defogging, coolant flow for the engine, that kind of stuff. But then I move on to marine applications, so doing high performance boats, luxury yachts and that kind of stuff. Multi-phase flow, so there was an example in my website, a sewage treatment. Wind turbines. Well, I actually haven't done any wind turbines, but my business partner is a specialist in hydroelectric turbines. So moving a bit to the energy sector as well. And so while motorsport is a big part of my business, automotive motorsport, I'm trying to move away a little bit. Not in terms of moving away, but just add different areas. So I'm really keen into the green energy at the moment. So there's this big push for hydrogen and combined with electrification. So there's quite a lot going on, a lot of new technologies being developed. And, part of what I'm trying to do is find partners to develop projects in these areas as well.
Nice. And you guys are a co-founder in something called the Oxcam Engineering Arc. So why don't you tell everyone listening to this and watching what that is?
Yeah. So the way I try to build a business is basically I try to build a business that is highly flexible. I think that's one of the concepts I try to put together, so that I can adapt to different technologies. I can. One thing I was quite worried, especially when you think about CFD, for example, people a few years ago would buy a lot of hardware and then have that overhead cost sitting there. And then obviously you had to push yourself to do a lot of CFD to use it. And, nowadays we have a lot more cloud computing. So I try to base myself into technologies that are more on demand, so that you can use when you have a project and shut it down if you don't have. And part of the same concept was applied to expertise as well. I'm not trying to hold all the expertise within the company. So the idea was to build collaborations, and Oxcam is a collaboration between 3 small companies like Sabe, and we have slightly different expertise. Another company, FTS, well, their expertise is around fluid dynamics, but they have they are better at slightly different things than we are, let's say. And another company, Transforming Stress, is expert in stress and fatigue. And then the idea is a little bit to obviously share resources, sharing knowledge and so on, but also we are sharing sales effort and marketing effort and all that. So it's kind of the idea of essentially being virtually a bigger company, but without the overhead costs, because we all can bring our costs to near zero.
And the idea being that you're going to promote this trusted team to the wider community, so that they can basically, in essence, get all 3 of you working on a project versus finding one of you and then having to find another 1 or 2 businesses to support it.
Yeah, exactly. So at the moment, Sabe is in the payroll we have only two of us, but we have overall 5 people in the team that we are working together constantly. We are interacting almost every day about project sales, marketing, all sorts. Yeah. So that's the idea.
Very good. And you guys and Sabe recently joined the Silverstone Technology Cluster. So that's how we've been introduced. So for those listening to this that might not be aware, so the STC, as it's formally known, is a special community of technology-focused businesses, whether that be similar to Sabe, for example, through to professional advisors who are sort of supporting those businesses. And it's based in the heart of Silverstone Park, next to the Silverstone F1 race circuit. So you guys joined the STC literally a couple of months ago. So you're fairly new in. And so why? Pretty obvious answer, I think. But why did you guys join the STC?
Well, as I started the business, the first initial projects I got were basically on reputation, or people recommended, people who knew me, and that took me quite a while for a bit. But then now I am in a better position. We are trying to develop a bit more of technology R&D work, and as I said, I mentioned about green energy, for example. It's something that I very much want to be involved in projects around green energy, but unfortunately I cannot develop projects on my own because I only hold specific expertise. So one part of the joining STC is essentially finding partners to develop bigger projects, especially in other areas that we can work together. And there is the obvious aspect of I want to find work as well. So people needing consultancy fluid dynamics, here I am, but I'm also after partnerships as well. Yeah.
And so, sort of two-pronged question. So for those, when it comes to sort of green energy, what type of businesses listening to this might you want to be looking for? So what would be an ideal partner or a potential partner?
Well, all sorts, I think from people looking at new technologies in hydrogen or new batteries, or developing a new electric car. We'll need some sort of well, they are some sort of partner to help them with the installation, or with dealing with problems in infrastructure or on the design. Yeah, anyone really developing any technology.
Fine. And then clearly anybody that's looking for support with projects regarding fluid dynamics or otherwise, you guys are the company to go and talk to. Yeah.
So we are trying to so I'm kind of I'm trying to build an approach of building long-term relationships with our clients as well. So one thing I see, especially if you take CFD, is that I think we live in a world these days where a lot of people are highly specialized, and a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people end up with tunnel vision as well, and they only see their own area. And you see a lot of people overcomplicated things, in my opinion. So like I had a good stint in Formula One working with our correlation, and having a lot of tools in my hands to find, as I said, why this design is not working on track. And I think the first thing people think about, especially CFD, is like, oh, we need to improve the resolution of the model, have a more complex model. But 90% of the problems I dealt with, it was essentially we were asking the wrong questions to start with, or there was a modeling, or we were making assumptions that were wrong. So I'm trying to build an approach with my clients where we build fit for purpose solutions for them, which not always work my way directly because they tend to be cheaper. So I'm not selling the most expensive simulation, but on the other hand, it helps me to build relationship with the clients, and they come back to me. So that has been working so far.
Yeah.
It's so I'm trying to go and ask questions and say, right, do you really understand your input data enough to justify such a complex simulation? Or is this, if you think of a race car, and you can run a 500 million model that would take days to run, do you really want to run this simulation in one single condition, or you like to run 10 of a simpler one, which gives you a better understanding of how the car behaves around the corner, for example, things like that. So I think it's difficult to say what's right and wrong, but I like to take this approach, a more holistic approach of seeing the whole problem or the whole challenge, and help working with the clients to understand what solution they need at that point, and then what they need to do to improve for the future. And that sometimes will come from, as I said, from fluid dynamics, but that sometimes will come from doing all the tests to understand their materials, the material properties, the input data, and so on.
Yeah. No, it's impressive. It's good. And look, we're recording this the day after, a huge incident in the F1 world, one which many years ago would have taken a life. So we've touched on Senna, and obviously your love and the story behind Senna. So, Romain Grosjean, the halo, the equipment, the support staff involved in that rescue. So the halo, for example, when that was first introduced, lots of people very unhappy with it, but clearly a critical piece of design, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. What happened yesterday was it was unbelievable, wasn't it? I think I'm sure there'll be a lot of investigations there. I think things went wrong there. Clearly, that shouldn't have happened the way it happened, but ultimately, the work done by the FIA and the engineers around it, paid off yesterday massively. And incidents like that is funny because I had that is one of my strongest memories as a child is when Senna died, because he died live on television, and I was watching and I know everything about that day, as most people do, I think. And when that happened yesterday, it brings you to that day again. It's quite a strong feeling. It's
very profound. Right, let's move on to COVID. So you guys obviously launched months before COVID kicked in. COVID then kicked in spring. We went into lockdown. We then came out of lockdown. We then gone back into lockdown, and I think we're now coming out 2 days' time from lockdown. What's it been like running ultimately a startup during this period of time, and how have you kept yourself optimistic and positive?
It's been interesting. As I said, one of the things that the concept of the business is a high flexibility. So, I think the business never have been a risk of survival, of not surviving, because I was able to shut down most of my key costs to almost near zero. So obviously there is the personal side of not taking an income from it, but as a business, it was kind of okay. And also because I set myself to work from home, I was in the best place to deal with that. So in that sense, it was fine. What was really tricky is that I was having quite a good momentum back in February, January. There are clients coming back and building confidence, and how sales is all about is a pipeline, isn't it? So you are working and things are, you do something now and to get some result in 2 months time and so on, and that was broken by COVID. So you feel, for me, the main effect is that breaking the momentum and now having to restart again. But other than that, it's been fine. I cannot really complain.
And what are you? So next year, let's pretend it's 2021. We've all had our vaccinations, or in whatever order we're allowed them. What are you personally looking forward to doing the most that perhaps you can't do at the moment?
Just travel a bit more. I quite fancy going and eating a cake in a cafe as well, I think.
Yeah, cake
just the simple things. Yeah, I miss swimming. Little things like that.
Yeah. How have the family been back in Brazil?
They're all right. There are quite a high number of cases again in their area, so everyone is kind of staying at home. But luckily, no one caught yet. Good.
Long may that continue. Right, last question, Gerson. So this question has taken decades to formulate, to write down, to practice, to then ask. This question is probably going to be the most challenging question you're ever going to get asked in your already very impressive career today and beyond. And I'm going to give it a little drum roll. So you're ready. What is the king of crisps?
The king of crisps.
I have
no idea.
Of crisps. What's your favorite packet of crisps?
Just lightly salted.
Okay. Any specific make?
No, I'm not a massive fan of crisps.
Okay, so let's reverse the question. So what's your snack of choice? So let's say you're going to sit down with the kids to watch a movie, or you're going to watch some F1. So you're going to watch.
I like just milk chocolate, white chocolate. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, you're a chocolate man, not a crisp man. That's fine. We've been asking that question oddly for the last few episodes. I don't even know why we started. We've had some phenomenal answers, and actually there are a few engineers that aren't into crisps. So you are not alone, sir. So don't worry. Right. Gerson, I'm going to make sure that in the show notes there's links to Sabe, there's links to you guys, and so if obviously anyone listening to this either wants to understand more about working with them for a current project, or want to get involved in or discuss clean energy and obviously that very, very positive and very, very important story, narrative and conversation path, then show notes will direct you to Sabe Technologies. So, Gerson, wonderful to finally meet you. I look forward to eventually getting together with you next year, presumably amongst all the other STC members. Welcome to the STC. I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun. There's some fantastic businesses, some great people to collaborate with. I have no doubt you'll be very, very successful. And I hope that you have a successful end to the year.
Thank you very much. It has been a very warm welcome from everyone from STC. Thank you.
Good. Speak to you soon, sir.
Cheers.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.